They were not soldiers. They didn't carry rifles. And most had never seen the inside of a trench. But they sailed into war just the same. Their battlefield was the open ocean. Their enemy was silent, invisible, and merciless. And their mission was simple: keep a starving island alive. This is the story of the Atlantic Convoys, a silent war fought by ordinary people. A war without glory. A war we almost lost. When World War II broke out in September 1939, Britain's survival hinged on one reality: she was an island. Nearly everything Britain needed came by sea: fuel, food, medical supplies, tanks and trucks, timber and steel. Without merchant ships, the war effort would starve, and so would the people. That's why just weeks after the war began, the first convoys set sail. Lines of slow cargo-laden merchant vessels, grouped together for protection, escorted by destroyers, sloops, and corvettes, many of them leftovers from the First World War. The route stretched thousands of miles, from Halifax and New York, to Liverpool, Glasgow, and Belfast. Some convoys came from as far away as South America, India, and Australia. And all of them faced the same threat: the German U-boat. The Kriegsmarine submarine arm had declared war on shipping. Their goal was to strangle Britain, cut off her supplies, sink her freighters, and force her into surrender. For them, the merchant navy was fair game. Civilians, flagged neutrals, hospital ships, it didn't matter. The Atlantic became a war zone. The weather made things worse. Sailors often fought not just the enemy, but the sea itself: freezing storms, rolling fog, and towering waves. Ice formed on decks. Engines broke down in sub-zero temperatures. Men slipped overboard and vanished forever. And still, the convoys sailed. Germany's answer to the convoy system was simple and devastating: the wolf pack. Instead of only one lone submarine patrolling at random, U-boats began coordinating attacks. Using encrypted signals and long-range scouts, German command could mass several subs against a single convoy, striking at night, with terrifying precision. A dozen torpedoes could be fired in a matter of minutes. Ships exploded in fireballs. Survivors were left to freeze in lifeboats, or drift for days until rescued. If they were lucky. Convoy after convoy was hit. HX-106, SC-7, ONS-5. Many lost half their ships or more. Some never reached port at all. By the middle of 1942, the numbers were staggering. In only 6 months, Germany sank over 600 Allied ships, including tankers and troop transports. Even neutral nations suffered. American ships were torpedoed off their own coastline. In one grim period, German U-boats prowled so close to the US East Coast that the burning wrecks were visible from Atlantic City boardwalks. The merchant navy, for their part, had few defenses. Most ships had no sonar, no radar, and no weapons. But they sailed anyway. A typical mariner's life expectancy on the Atlantic run in 1942 was just a few weeks. They knew the odds, and they sailed anyway. They were not professional soldiers. They were fishermen, school teachers, factory workers, and retirees. Some were boys of 16. Others were men in their 60s. The only thing they shared was courage and a determination to keep the world moving. These were the unsung heroes of the Atlantic. For every man in a destroyer, there were 10 in a freighter or tanker. Their cargo, crates of munitions, barrels of aviation fuel, or tons of flour and canned meat, stacked high in holds, vulnerable to the smallest spark. When a ship was torpedoed, there was often no time to launch lifeboats. Some vessels sank in less than a minute. Those who made it into the water faced freezing temperatures. Many died of hypothermia within 10 minutes. Others clung to wreckage, waiting for rescue that might never come. In 1940, the crew of the tanker San Dimitrio was shelled and her crew abandoned their burning ship. Miraculously, they later found her still afloat, flames out, engines running. They climbed back aboard, put out the remaining fires, and sailed her home to Britain. Their courage was real, but largely unrecognized. Unlike Navy crews, merchant mariners weren't awarded military honors. Many were denied benefits. Their deaths weren't always counted. Even so, they stood their posts. Some sang shanties to keep warm. Others passed the time writing letters, knowing they might never be sent. Some simply watched the sea, waiting for the flash of a periscope or the roar of an incoming torpedo. They were civilians. But they served, and they suffered, all the same. The early years of the Battle of the Atlantic were brutal, but they weren't the end. By 1943, the Allies began to push back. New technologies arrived: radar, sonar, HF-DF radio tracking, and long-range patrol aircraft like the B-24 Liberator. The Royal Navy introduced faster escort ships, better depth charges, and convoy tactics designed to protect the most vulnerable vessels. Most important of all, code breakers at Bletchley Park cracked the German Enigma cipher. For the first time, Allied commanders could anticipate U-boat positions and reroute convoys to safety. Suddenly, the hunters became the hunted. U-boats that once attacked with impunity now found themselves tracked and cornered. In May 1943 alone, the Germans lost 41 submarines, 1 in every 4 at sea that month. It was a catastrophic loss. Admiral Donitz called it a disaster without equal. After that, the Battle of the Atlantic began to shift decisively in the Allies' favor. Convoy losses declined. Supplies flowed more freely. The great build-up for D-Day was now possible. But the battle never truly ended. U-boats continued to fight until the last days of the war. Over 30,000 German submariners, 3 out of every 4, would never return. And still, the convoys sailed. When peace finally returned in 1945, the world exhaled. Nations celebrated. Flags waved. Victory parades marched down crowded streets. But for the men of the convoys, there were no brass bands. No victory medals. They returned to silence, and in many cases, to nothing. Over 36,000 Allied merchant seamen died during the Battle of the Atlantic. Thousands more were wounded or left with deep psychological scars. Some had crossed the ocean dozens of times. Others had never finished their first trip. Winston Churchill would later write, "The Battle of the Atlantic was the dominating factor all through the war. Everything happening elsewhere ultimately depended on its outcome. And yet, their contribution was forgotten by many. Some nations delayed recognition of merchant veterans for decades. Others never offered it at all. But history remembers. Today, in museums, harbors, and memorials scattered across the world, their story is finally being told. The story of the men who fought without guns. Who froze without shelter. Who died without medals. The men who delivered victory, one stormy mile at a time. The guardians of the lifeline. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can also subscribe and explore our channel for previous battleship videos. Bye for now and Godspeed.